Hi, welcome to Periergy. Today, we're going to start a brand new series on the programming language C++. If you end up liking this video, please subscribe and leave a like. It's free and you can always change your mind. This course is meant for beginner programmers who want to start their career, but also intermediate programmers and advanced programmers who want a beautiful recap on what they might have missed on this language. C++ was originally made to create operating systems, but right now you can actually code anything you want. In the future, it's going to be more easy to pick up on other languages because as a programmer, you're going to learn more than one language. For this programming series, we're going to use Codeblocks. Codeblocks is an IDE. IDE stands for Integrated Development Environment. It's the place where we can code in C++. In the description, you can find 3 links. The first one is how to download and install Codeblocks for Windows. The second one is for macOS. And the third one should be for Linux, Ubuntu. To create our first project, you can click on this link, create a new project, and then double click on console application, choose C++, hit next, give a title to your project. I'm going to say variables, and then choose a path. This is the location in which your files are going to be located. I've already chosen this folder. And then click Next and hit Finish. Once you've done this, you should end up in this view. To see your files, you can click on this plus and double click on main.cpp. Main.cpp is the main file in which we're going to code in C++. CPP stands, in fact, for C++. And this is the basic and standard default code that is going to come. And if you want to try if this works, you can hit this build and run button. And if a black window creates, and this black window says hello world, everything was installed correctly. Now, if you look at your code, you should be seeing a bunch of text that you might not understand. For now, you can just focus on what is inside these 2 brackets, this open bracket and this close brackets, and ignore whatever is outside of it. But we're going to explain what this is in the future. For now, just delete this line and space things out. The first concept that we want to learn in programming is what is a variable. If you remember math class, you might know what X and Y are used for to generally design graphs. But in programming, variables are much more powerful. If you don't know what a variable is, you can think of a variable as a drawer or as a closet in which you can put data and information that can be stored by your application to use it in the future. In programming, we have a bunch of basic types, and these types are called primitives. The first primitive that we have is an integer value. An integer value is a number that does not have a decimal part. An example would be 1, 5, -4, and -6. The second type of primitive is a floating point number. And a floating point number is an integer that has the decimal part, like this one, or this. But even this, if you remember math class, this is equal to saying 5. But not in programming. In programming, if you add the 0.0, this is no more considered an integer. This is a floating point number. Another type of floating point number, but more precise, is a double. A double is a floating point number much bigger, and that's why it's precise. You know, when the decimal part starts to go a little bit big, the floating point numbers tend to mess things up. But the double here comes handy because they're much more precise. The fourth primitive is a character. The character is just the letter A, M, the equal sign, the question mark, this kind of things. And characters, when they're united, form text, and text in programming is called strings. The last primitive, not text file busy, just text. The last primitive that we have is a Boolean. A Boolean value is just a variable that can hold either a 0 or a 1. This way, in programming, we have a way to recognize if something is false, 0, or if it's true, with a 1. All right, now that we've talked about what a variable is, and note that we will see this primitives is in much more depth in the future, I want to talk about how does C++ work. If you saw before, we hit this button and a black window created. Now, if you try to do this again, you'll notice that no window gets created. A red box appears on the line 8, and this switches from build log to build messages, and it says error, X was not declared in the scope. The reason why this happens is because, well, C++ does not understand these words. C++ does not understand every English word in the dictionary, but the programmers that programmed C++ made it so that it could only understand keywords. And the way the computer understands the programmer is with a translation of these keywords into machine code. Computers only understand a bunch of ones and zeros, and something or someone, but it's usually something, has to deal with the translation of these keywords. The keywords are like the words that you see colored in this view. Something has to deal with this translation of the keywords into machine code, into those zeros and ones. And that's what we call the compiler. To activate the compiler in Codeblocks, you hit this button. And the compiler translates all of this bunch of words into machine code and creates a nice window, black window, that we call console. That's why this application are called console application. And the compiler, when creates this black window, it does this to let the programmer see that he's doing the right job. The programmer needs a way to know that the compiler is doing the things the programmer asks for. And the compiler works like this. It goes from left to right in every single line of your code from one to the end of your code. And you can tell the compiler to write to the console while it's doing all of these things, this translation. To write to the console, to tell the compiler to write to the console, use a bunch of keywords. Now, the first one is cout. Cout is a keyword that stands for console output, and that is the output of the console. And then use these angle brackets, and you put something after this angle brackets. That's the thing that it's going to go to the console. We can just use text that has to go between these quotes, and we can say hello. Then you use the angle brackets again, and you have to, well, not have to, but usually you want to use this keyword. This is called the end line. And then you have to put a semicolon. Why? The compiler needs to know when a certain command has finished. This is not related to all programming language, but C++ works like this. The compiler has to know when a certain command is finished. Otherwise, it's going to get a little bit confused if you write something in the next line. Now let's look at the output of this program. You can see the black window is created. This is the console, and you can read hello with an exclamation point. Now today we've we've gone through what a variable is and what is the compiler, what is an ID, Codeblocks, and how the compiler works, going from top to the bottom, from left to right, adding the semicolon. And in the next video, we're probably going to see how to combine the concept of the variable with the cout, and I'm going to introduce operators.